Greetings, I am Akiva Kenny Segan in Seattle. It's October 10th, 2015. What I'm about to play is the master cassette tape. I'm thrilled that this one is intact. One I listened to yesterday was a complete kind of gibberish mess, but this one sounds intact, of a radio interview aired on June 25th, 1987 on Northsound Radio, Aberdeen, Scotland. I was interviewed by senior producer Edi Stark, and the interview was at the Aberdeen Art Gallery, and this is the poster for the show. If you go to the description text accompanying the video here, I will have the URLs and background information on a number of artworks, including the works that are still in my studio. There are separate videos of Donator Castle, The Old Boyd Needed a Holiday, Taking Aberdeen Beach Walks, and others. This is the work we're heard talking about in the interview was this one here called Scottish Bluebell, which was 3 drawing sections, kind of the exterior dome of His Majesty's Theatre, Aberdeen, a portrait of someone who I'm not sure who that was, a portrait of a Scottish artist there, not my friend Matt, but someone else. And the whole thing was an etching plate. The high spot roll I talk about is here, that was petrified from the cafe restaurant in Seattle. Wooden kind of carved birds from these charity thrift shops from like sub-Saharan African countries. There's one bird there, one bird there, one bird there. A wooden sailing ship here. Might be hard to make these out. There's also a portrait of me up here in color with my hand, looks like my left hand on viewer's right there, leaning against my chin. The whole thing, unfortunately, self-destructed conservation-wise, probably from all the salt water and or oil in the ocean rope I had picked up on a jog along the Aberdeen beach, which was interwoven not only through the wood base but through some of the drawing paper as well. So onto the interview. There's maybe a minute or so of or two of whatever the news interview that preceded her interview with me. We'll hear that as well, and it's fun for me to hear the Aberdeen accents again, even though I was just in Scotland for 3 weeks this past March, teaching in schools and at a Rotary Club. Here we go.
You could never pull that off.
And how? He's going to do it.
You're looking at a kid from the mail or removed into a top executive position. You're going to tell me I can't pull it off.
Michael J. Fox in The Secret of My Success. At a cinema near you from Friday. Rated PG.
See the superb new range of Honda and Moto Guzzi motorcycles at Ian Kirk Engineering. Ask for written details of the low finance deals available on these bikes at Ian Kirk Engineering, Cutter, Aberdeen.
Hello again, this is Lucen's Northsound Radio's leisure programme designed to keep your spare time tied up. Here's regular Lucender Kitty Pawson with news of what's happening in the National Trust properties this weekend.
Well, our first event is at Drumcastle this weekend, Saturday the 27th, a ranger guided walk starting at 2 o'clock until 3:30. Now, our Northeast Ranger will take people through Drum Forest, explaining the wildlife and the history. Drum Forest is actually very, very, very ancient, so there's a lot of history and a lot of interest for people who are interested in that sort of thing to go along on Saturday. Prices 75 pence for adults, 35 pence for children, and coffee and tea available at an extra charge if you wish afterwards.
How many people tend to go along to these walks?
Well, funnily enough, I asked our ranger, they had one at 5e last week. Now, I think they had 35 people at 5e, and that was on a very dreich evening. It was not sort of good weather-wise to say
Very
it
what?
was a wonderful evening.
Evening? Whew, gotta look that up.
Poor evening. We averaged anything between, well, I think there was 12 at least, Paul.
So, but just a couple of weeks, I decided it was high time I introduced myself and had a look at his exhibition. Ken has had no formal training, but has certainly qualified for the post of international
No formal
artist
training.
from the international viewpoint. He's travelled extensively, as I found out when I asked how a New Yorker had ended up in Aberdeen.
A New Yorker ends up in Aberdeen via moving to central rural Illinois a few years after high school, secondary school, onward to Missouri, onward to Seattle, about 7 years ago. on to Poland in 1984, where I met Fahrenholz, a third-year Gray's art student of considerable worth. We were traipsing around Krakow and Poland by the Czech border, and he said, "You got to come visit, Segan." And the following year, a friend of mine and I, a person who I live with back in Seattle, came through Britain for a few weeks, up to Scotland to see Matt, visited his folks in St. Andrews, on up to Aberdeen, came to the gallery, Peacock, and heard about the International Artist-in-Residency, and
So you just applied?
that I'm here. Well, it took a while, 2 years later, and so came up and checking out the scene here.
Have you enjoyed your time here, though?
It's good. I like the country. I like Scotland, and the people are real good.
How much is it going to be reflected in future work?
Well, everything's a constant influence and evolution, and I think it's going to be reflected quite a bit. There's a lot of good characters I've met here, things I've seen, light, ambience. It's all absorbed and it will all come out in visual form.
Your exhibition is certainly very varied. We're standing in front of the only mixed media work, which I will ask you to explain in a moment, but perhaps you'd like to just describe very briefly in general your other work.
Well, most of my work's divided up into drawings, prints, etchings, dry points, and among those we've got portraits. There's a number of self-portraits here. I heard that when I was here 2 years ago, that the museum, the gallery, specialized in a self-portraits by artists collection. I thought that would be pretty cool to show. And I've got landscapes, scenes of, one scene of this Donatar Castle. I can't pronounce. Donatar. Yeah. I can't pronounce Scottish, much less understand it. We've got things along the beach and cows, a whole variety of things.
Let's look at this one in particular, though, which is called Scottish Bluebell. Maybe you'd like to explain the story behind it. Okay. Scottish Bluebell is really from the matches, presumably, is it?
Right, that's right here, next to the old Heidelberg. We've got actually 3 separate drawings here that were put together in one vast, colorful, exciting, I hope, to the people who see it, mixed media piece, kind of a triptych as one unit. On the right we have Stuart Mackenzie, who's the Scottish artist-in-residence downstairs in the gallery here. I did a drawing study of him one night.
And underneath it there's a Royal Bank of Scotland polythene bag full of pens.
Pens and billiard cues. A friend sent me a plastic set of, like to play pool on your kitchen table. It was kind of a ridiculous thing. It didn't really work at all.
Yes.
Yeah. With a drawing pencil in there, kind of in his shirt pocket area. Other odds and ends.
There's rope.
There's rope from the beach.
Now tell me about the roll, though, in the polythene bag there.
I knew you'd ask about that. The roll. The person in the center here is the person I live with. She works at the High Spot Cafe along Lake Washington in Seattle, Washington. And I got driven up to Vancouver to catch a flight on to London on March 28th. Tossed a few High Spot freshly baked rolls in my backpack, and ate a couple of them. Had 2 more when I got here. Of course, that was a long trek from Seattle to Vancouver, Vancouver to London, on to Aberdeen. Well, the roll was just about petrified by the time I got to Aberdeen.
And there it is.
If you dropped it from the Empire State Building, it would go through the pavement. Yeah. In fact, if Maggie and Ron if we ever get involved in one of these nuclear war scenes, this thing's going to survive. That roll's tough. Birds, elephants, objects I got at the Third World Center to help those folks who aren't as fortunate as the rest of us.
This is in Aberdeen.
In Aberdeen, right, over by the church and cemetery a few blocks away.
Yeah.
And as you can see, I've drawn, written, I've stamped things on there, and
it's lots of fun, and it's fascinating, and it's great to work out what everything is. Is there actually a meaning in it, though?
Of course. I wouldn't do art if it didn't have a meaning. I don't know if you noticed the brood of birds over here in the middle. Yeah. The meaning. What is the meaning? I like to leave
Not
that.
all artists, of course, would admit to any meaning in their art.
Sure. It's various states of of mind, states of mood, visual perception, and well, it evokes different feelings for me here and
Isn't the
there.
American expression enjoy?
American expression and joy? Sure, you got it. Right on.
Ken Segan's exhibition is on the gallery above the fountain at Aberdeen Art Gallery. There was plenty action at Milne's auction rooms yesterday.